Good evening to everyone, and thank you very much for coming. I would like also to thank MUŻA and Heritage of Malta for the invitation to deliver this masterclass, which, as Kenneth said, is dedicated to a book entitled Tratado das Cores, Treatise on Colors. This book was written, is written in Portuguese and was written by a Portuguese Knight, 𝗧𝗿𝗁𝘁, and was printed in Malta in 1787. Currently is part of MUΖA collection and was donated to the Valletta Museum by a Maltese gentleman between 1920 and 1940. This book came to my hands in 2017 during one of the digitization projects between the Malta Study Center at the Hill Museum and Manuscript Library and the Heritage of Malta. I must say that on that day I could not avoid some excitement of having this book in my hands. I was an art student and I heard my teachers mention the importance of this book for the study of the colors, and in particular for the 18th century literature produced in Portuguese. But I never had the opportunity to see one. The exemplars that exist in Portugal at the National Library are not available due to damage, and sadly there it was, an original exemplar with all the illustrations hand-painted by the author. And honestly, nothing gives me more pleasure than the opportunity to share with you this subject. But who was this Portuguese knight? So, 𝗧𝗿𝗁𝘁 was born on the 28th of May of 1750 in Lamego, a city in the north of Portugal, where the Grand Master Manuel Pinto da Fonseca was also born. He was born in the family house, Casa do Poço, that you see, the White House, which is situated in front of the Cathedral of Lamego. Casa do Poço is today the Museum of Sacred Heart. 𝗧𝗿𝗁𝘁 was the fifth son of a noble family with strong connections with the Order of Malta. Just to give you an idea, Diogo's godfather was Fra Francisco Guedes de Carvalho, also from Lamego, Vice-Chancellor of the Grand Master Pinto da Fonseca and Protector of the University. And his brother, Francisco de Carvalho Pinto, who was admitted to the order in 1746 as a minor, was bailiff of Lessa and would be appointed Vice-Chancellor between 1795 and 1798. And would be this brother, Francisco de Carvalho Pinto, that would play an essential role on Diogo's arrival to Malta. So that you understand the connections with the order and the connections of the family with the Grand Master Pinto. Francisco de Carvalho Pinto actually was born Francisco de 𝗧𝗿𝗁𝘁, like his brother. But back then it was possible, if you had some connections with other families, it was possible to change your surname. And that's what Francisco did when he arrived to Malta, and he asked permission to change his name to the Pinto name to be more closer to the Grand Master. So this was actually authorized and possible. Another example that I did not put here in the slide, but for example, their uncle, both Diogo and Francisco, from his father's side, was Fra Martim Álvaro Pinto da Fonseca, the Grand Master's brother. Diogo, being the fifth son of a noble family, was not entitled to benefits or succession titles. So he had to choose a career within ecclesiastic, military, or administrative services. Sampaio became a judge with a doctorate of law from the University of Coimbra, which he concluded in 1768. We don't know much about Diogo's life between the year of the conclusion of his studies, in 1768, but we know that he was in Coimbra between 1669 and 1783, the year that he was actually appointed judge of Viana do Castelo, another city in the north of Portugal. We also know that a few years after his appointment he had some conflicts with the local administration of Viana do Castelo, which in fact resulted in a request from Diogo to be exonerated, and this happened in June 1785. Diogo arrived in Malta in October 1785 at the age of 35, and a month later joins the caravan services. The order was then ruled by the Grand Master Emmanuel 𝗏𝗏. And I think we can say that it was on this island that the former Portuguese judge became a self-taught scientist. By the time Diogo arrives in Malta, the country enjoyed a certain political and economic stability just before the shockwaves of the French Revolution. Valletta, the capital, was then a cosmopolitan city teeming with the arrival of merchants and travelers from all over the Mediterranean, but not only, to whom the city offered a vibrant culture and artistic landscape. In Malta, we believe, when not in duty of his responsibilities with the order, Diogo dedicated some time to appreciate the culture and the art of the island. And this included, for sure, the works of Nicolau Nasoni at the Grand Master's Palace, an artist with a strong presence in Portugal, in particular on 𝗖𝗿𝗀𝘁𝗍𝗀's homeland, Lamego, and of course the magnificent paintings of Caravaggio, Favre, who dominated the art scene in Malta under the patronage of Grand Master 𝗏𝗏, among, of course, other artists. I'm very confident that the vibrant culture of Malta and the contact with a variety of cultures to the different languages of the order and an easy access to a panoply of artists influenced 𝗖𝗿𝗀𝗀. He would write that he started to consider the study of colors by pure curiosity because he found them so beautiful and interesting. So he decided to dedicate them a deeper reflection. And this actually made me think and question as well, if the colors and the particular light of this beautiful island and all the paintings that he saw, served as an awakening for 𝗖𝗿𝗀𝗀's sensibility to the subject. I truly believe that we all have different sensibilities, some for colors, others for music, others for taste. So I believe that when 𝗖𝗿𝗀𝗀 came to Malta, and a bit disappointed with his career, and with some time available, he felt that he had that sensibility to the perception of the colors. Because the interest in the study of the colors remained after he left the island, which happened in March of 1788. A few months after publishing his first book, the Tratado, Diogo de Carvalho e Sampaio would publish two more books on the same subject, one printed in Lisbon in 1788, dissertation on primitive colors with a short treatise on artificial composition of colors, and another one in Madrid in 1791, memory about the natural composition of colors. So I truly believe that he fell in love with the subject and continue his students. What is interesting is that in these two new publications, he always refers to himself as a Knight of the Order of Malta. He also published another book between these two in 1790, but this one dedicated to agriculture. We must keep in mind that 𝗖𝗿𝗀𝗀𝗀 was a judge. He had a degree in law, no experience, no studies in colors, in light, or anything related with that subject. But let's focus on our book and our object. As I said, Tratado dos Cores was printed in Malta in 1787 by Giovanni Carlo Malia, with a superior authorization, which does not represent a surprise since everything published was pretty much controlled. The surprise resides in the fact that it was written in Portuguese. Perhaps not so common back then, having books written and printed in Portuguese, and having the permission to do so. Will the influence of the family have something to do with that? Well, we don't know. As I said in the beginning, we know little about Diogo's life. The book has 14 sheets, starts with 14 sheets numbered 1 to 14 in Roman numbers. That includes the preface, a short explanation of the first, second, and third parts that compose the book, and the meaning of some Greek words that the author uses in the book, such as hermeneutics, analogy, and we will have the opportunity to see that when I finish my presentation. This part is then followed by 153 pages of text dedicated to the study of the analysis, synthesis, and hermeneutics of colors. It starts with a brief introduction in which the author explains how nature is composed by several elements, but that he will only write about one, the colors. In this section, the author also includes a vocabulary of colors, where he explains, for example, that the color blue has variations, like the Prussian blue or the sky blue. In this section, we can also read some explanation that he makes on the hand-colored diagrams and others related with the first, second, and third parts. The book ends with 17 sheets, 17 plates. Unfortunately, one is missing, plate 13. The original one has 18. Some of them are folded sheets. I believe the 13 was also a folded sheet, but in this exemplar, we only have one, the 14, with hand-colored diagrams painted by the author himself. Thank you to Krystle that provided me with information that these sheets are printed in intaglio. Please correct me if I'm saying it properly. In this book, we have some exemplars here. In this book, Diogo mentions the work of several influential authors, from classics to modern: Aristotle, Descartes, Pythagoras, Homer, Newton, Torquato, among others, all written in different languages: Latin, French, English, Italian, and German, which not only shows how much time Diogo dedicated to the investigation of this subject, but also reveals his level of education. However, Diogo excludes from his literature review other authors essential for the study of this topic, such as Leonardo da Vinci, Giorgio Vasari, or Marcantonio Dominis, who was the first one to develop the theory of rainbow. But he explains why. In this work, I do not consider the most reputable authors on this subject, despite my consideration for their work, but I've decided to take nature as my guide. Here we can, I think the image is not brilliant, but here we can see Aristotle, the Cartesians, which where is Descartes, and other authors. Well, then we will see where he mentions Newton, Locke. So he did an extensive investigation work, and we believe that he did all this at the National Library in Malta. He had access to all these books at the National Library in Malta. In the preface, we can read about his intentions and how he conducted his studies. This treatise is nothing else than a clear exposition of my ideas about colors, according to the order they appear to me. Diogo states his amateur status on this subject without, however, neglecting the importance of experimentation when observing and studying colors. We must not forget that through the 17th and 18th centuries, Europe experienced a process of intellectual liberation in which experimentation became the method to achieve any true knowledge. Diogo was actually imbued with this spirit. He writes that verification is essential for all theoretical or abstract construction of knowledge. He constantly refers to the experience he made several times with different instruments to obtain some consistency of the results. Nevertheless, Diogo makes sure his intentions are always clearly understood. These experiences allowed me to create some color analogies with nature, reason why I consider them valid. He recognized the importance of experimentation, as I said, but for him this needs to be in association with the evidence of a sensory experience. And this is the only way for creating ideas. I risk to say that this is the true Enlightenment spirit. And this actually might explain Goethe's comments on the work of the Portuguese Knight. And I'm quoting, "Carvalho rushed into a kind of a theory after only a few observations." Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, a German poet, novelist and scientist, who wrote, among other things, plays, poetry, diverse literature, and treatises, one about colors. Theory of Colors was published in German in 1810 and then in England in 1840. A curious fact is that Goethe was planning to come to Malta in 1787 when 𝗖𝗍𝗀𝘁 published his book. But the bad weather in 𝗧𝗿𝘁𝗀𝘁, in Sicily, prevented the German writer and a friend from visiting the island. Later, Goethe would meet Diogo by reading his last work on the study of colors, that we saw earlier in one of the slides, Memory about the Natural Composition of Colors. This book was actually offered by Diogo to a common friend, William von Humboldt, when Diogo was already in Madrid as an ambassador of Portugal after leaving Malta. Von Humboldt sends the book to Goethe with an introduction letter, and he mentions that despite their differences, the two of them seem to share their love for the study of colors through the observation of nature and experiences, which led them to similar discoveries. Both defended that pure natural science do not need mathematics, but only experience and fundamental studies. By the 18th and the 19th century, the study of colors was actually very popular, involving academics, scientists, philosophers, manufacturers, and merchants. So it is not surprising, or maybe it is, that Diogo de Carvalho Sampaio, a judge by profession, but at the same time a curious man, would become the Portuguese author that published more books about colors in the 18th century. But let's get back to our book. I will actually not get into details about the study of the colors. After all, we have 153 pages of text about this subject, and I'm pretty sure that would be each section, the first, the second, and the third part, would be themed for 1, 2, or even more masterclasses. But I will share with you some of his ideas. So Diogo says that there are 6 elementary colors, 2 primitives and 4 derivatives. The primitive colors are red and green, the dominant colors in nature, he says. The animal world is red and the plant world is green. And we can see on the top, your top left, that he says, when contemplating the majestic spectacle of the universe, natural bodies present us with a wonderful and almost incomprehensible variety of color mix. And among them, we can distinguish 6: black, red, blue, green, and yellow. Because as I said, for Diogo, primitive colors are red and green, and the other ones derive from these two colors. Well, today we all agree that the primary colors are red, yellow, and blue, so a little bit different. Well, the red is still there. He also says that the blue results from certain modifications on the red, either by the refraction of the light or mixing with other substances. The black results from the mixture in the same quantities of red, blue, green, and yellow. We all know that the color black results from the absence of the light. The same way, he states that black is a positive color. The same way he states that white is a positive color, but one results from the combination of all the other colors, the 5 other colors, and the white results from the division of those colors. When he says that the white, when the colors are divided, we have white, actually is a little bit the opposite what we say today, that the white is actually the mixture of all the colors. But 𝗧𝗿𝘁 understood the importance of the light, and he says the colors, they need light to be perceived. The nature of the light and the colors will always be unknown, like the nature of the spirit and substance. But the properties of the light and colors, we can study and know them. So, despite he does not have any academic background in this area, he totally understood the importance of the light to study the colors. And he mentions in the book that sometimes it was very complicated for him to go through the experiences because he constructed objects to perform his experience, and he got so confused that he decided to grab his objects and actually go outside to the nature to make the same experiences, because he realized the importance of the light in the morning, in the afternoon, and with the sunset. In this plate, well, let's a little bit before this. Diogo, as I said, he uses the nature as his guide. The best example is when he says that he took as an example the meat of dead animals that eventually becomes blue after a period. So he writes that perhaps the Prussian blue is made with blood of bull or any other animal. These are the conclusions that, or the principles, he calls them principles, because he actually believes that the nature, the colors that he sees in the nature are the ones that can be applied to anything in the world. As he says, the wise nature, only with 2 primitive colors, that true light wave can have an infinite variation and prodigious combination, allow us to see all different species in a magnificent variety of colors. Art, less powerful than nature, needs 4 colors to imitate nature, and those colors are the blue, the yellow, the black, and the white, because the green and the red already exists in nature. In this particular plate that Diogo calls tábua, he says that was produced in the same way as the 13, unfortunately is the one that is missing, and he calls it a plate, how colors are created and divided. The 6 colors united in equal parts produce the black, the number 7, which actually is on the top. And when we divide these colors through several levels, we achieve color white, number 43. We must bear in mind that this book has lots of years, and the change of the colors through the years, climate changes, so the diagrams are a little bit changed. Before I finish, and we actually have the opportunity to see the book, let me share with you a bit of Diogo's figure and personality, pictured by von Bolt when he met him in Madrid. Carvalho, a Portuguese ambassador. He is a bizarre person, Knight of the Order of Malta, but never been in anywhere except Malta and Iberia. He studied a lot, even knows how to read in German. In his work, he presents original ideas. However, he is a very strange person. Loves the Portuguese language and everything that is in Portuguese. Every day he goes out to watch a comedy in Spanish, but he does not attend to any academy or society. We know that in the 18th, 19th century, being part of an academy or a society was extremely important. He has a distinct figure, one of those lengthy and robust faces, and he is still full of old-fashioned ceremonies. This actually tells us that he was, and he felt and he acted like a nobleman. 𝗧𝗿𝗁𝘁 died on the 29th of December 1807. He returned to Lamego in 1801 and he married with Maria Cândida de Albergaria e Vasconcelos. I would like to thank the Malta Study Center at the Hill Museum and Manuscript Library and at MUŻA, Heritage of Malta, for allowing me to use the images of the book on this presentation. Currently, there's a digital copy available on the reading room of HMML, which is the website that you see there. Thank you for listening. Please feel free to ask any questions, and now I would like to invite you all to come and see the book, in particular the hand-painted diagrams. Thank you.